Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for being here and for your testimony. So some of the questions I wanted to ask have been asked, so I'm going to drill down a bit more with them. And one is around the whole question of random testing. And in many of your responses, the focus seemed to be more on drug use rather than drug impairment. Mr. Moore, in response to a question, you talked about that specifically. I wonder if you can say a bit more about that, because I'm wondering, a lot of the discussion seems to be around drug use and not around drug impairment. So why is that?
Again, very good question. As I've said, the position of my organization is that the concern is about employees being able to do their work safely. And that comes back to impairment. From all of the research we have done in public sources, public research that is available, we understand that testing is a bit of a moot point. Well, we take it as a bit of a moot point at this, because it's not whether you have THC in your system, it's whether you are capable of doing your job safely. And so overall, it's not like there's one size test fits all, because as has been discussed, alcohol is reasonably clear cut. Cannabis is not. There's nothing around, as one of my colleagues mentioned, Tylenol 3s or over-the-counter drug cough medicine with codeine, things like that, all of which are agents which impair and are of equal importance in the safety of the workplace. So from our point of view, we focus on the impairment aspect as opposed to the use aspect. Now, there are really three categories, I would say, of users of cannabis. There's the casual, once in a while, or someone offered it to me at a party last weekend and I tried it for the first time. There are medical marijuana users who, it's been discussed previously that medical marijuana use is recognized as something that employers are obligated to accommodate. So if someone is in a safety-sensitive position, they take medical marijuana, it has to be determined whether they are impaired. The third is chronic, or I want to use the right terminology here, but substance dependent. So they are also a category of people that employers are required to accommodate. Substance dependence is legally considered a disability, and therefore it must be accommodated by the employer. So there are various aspects to the use of the drug. There's, as I say, some casual user who gets randomly tested and he's used it once in his life, and it was at a party on the weekend, and he shows up as positive. Then there are the other aspects of, a chronic user who may, in testing 2 months after he or she last smoked a joint, will show as having had some THC in their system. As I say, there are those, then there are the medical users and the ones for whom it is a dependence, and they all need to be treated somewhat differently. But the underlying issue from our point of view in the workplace is the person showing up at work in a safety-sensitive position able to do that job that day. And the umbrella way of looking at that is through policies and procedures, education, making sure everyone is trained on recognizing impairment and being on the lookout for it, much as they are, as employees are trained to be on the lookout for other safety hazards.
Do I have any time left?
Oh, you got a half a minute. Quick question.
I'll go on the second round.
Okay. All right, are we down to the second round, eh? Oh, we are down to the second round. Okay, well, let me, since round one is over, I will insert a question here. And I'll give it to Mr. Moore. As we've heard, we've heard the differing opinions between employee representatives and employer representatives, okay? Wow, we've also heard they're great friends of each other. So I wonder, why can't employers and employees get together and work out a protocol, work out policies, without the government having to now interfere by legislation or regulation? What is the view of your organization on that, Mr. Moore?
Well, as I mentioned, we don't take a position on testing per se. We see both sides. We are also a tripartite organization in the sense that our governance, one of our governors is at the table. And so we have a very balanced government, employer, labor view on things. So we try and look at it from the point of view of what is going to keep the worker safe and what is going to help the employer to provide a safe and healthy workplace. And from our research into all of the research that's been done publicly, I mean, we're not testing people or anything like that. We're a tertiary institution. But our take on it is that because testing is uncertain at this point, and because impairment can be caused by many sources, the best way of ensuring that the workers are safe and that the employer is making best efforts, doing his or her due diligence to ensure a safe workplace, is through good policies and procedures and education and training on impairment. And that's all of that is already, if not directly in some provinces' legislation and indirectly in all the occupational health and safety legislation, in that the employer is required to ensure that there is a safe and healthy working environment. And some of them specifically say no drugs or alcohol, no drugs or alcohol. Some don't, but they're still covered by that general duty to provide a safe and healthy working environment. So I guess what I'm saying is my organization does not see the specific need for additional regulations in that area, but rather more for making sure that there are good policies and procedures and education.
Good. Okay.